Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bedroom Brainiacs, Adult Sex Education. My name is Catherine Dukes, and I'm the owner of the Center CD and Bedroom Brainiacs. And we're here today and super excited to celebrate Disability Pride Month, which is every July and coincides with the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Today, as part of our celebratory video for that, I have the great privilege to be able to talk with two awesome sex educators in our Delaware community who are doing some amazing work with adult sex ed with sex education with folks with disabilities. And today with me today, I have Quinn Vermillion, who's the Disabilities Coordinator at Planned Parenthood of Delaware's Education Department. And I also have Isabella Webber, who's our VP of Education at Planned Parenthood of Delaware. So thank you to you both for being here and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much, Kat. Excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited too. So many years ago, I worked at Planned Parenthood of Delaware, and I had the amazing opportunity to start to do sex education with folks with disabilities. And the work that you both have done in expanding and strengthening that project has been so much fun for me to be able to see years after I left Planned Parenthood. So I would love to draw on your expertise and ask you a few questions about adult sex ed with folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and also your awesome new project. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay,
Sounds
great.
good.
So first of all, just for anybody watching, please tell me about the work that the Planned Parenthood of Delaware Education Department does with folks with disabilities.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a really robust program, totally dedicated for sex education for people with disabilities. And we offer a variety of different services. We provide one-on-one sex education for people with disabilities. We provide education for groups of people with disabilities. We provide parent workshops for parents of people with disabilities. And also we provide professional training so that the professionals that are working with folks with disabilities know the best practices when it comes to sexuality. And this is actually a really unique program to Planned Parenthood of Delaware. There's only a few other Planned Parenthood affiliates across the United States that have a program like this.
And so can you tell us a little bit more about why is sex ed for folks with disabilities especially important?
Yeah, for sure. So, sex education for all people is really important. Everybody deserves access to sexual health information, including education about bodily autonomy and consent and healthy relationships and self-advocacy. And actually, access to comprehensive sex education increases appreciation and respect of sexual diversity. It expands our understanding of gender and gender norms. It reduces dating violence. It increases our knowledge and skills for healthy relationships and personal safety. So sex education is important for everybody, and people with disabilities are no exception to that. However, we also know that a lot of times people with disabilities are excluded from sex education classrooms and conversations. So that is why we have this unique and special program, particularly to serve this population.
And you said this program across the country is sort of rare, right? But you just talked about how important it is. Can you speak a little bit more about why accessibility to sex ed for folks with disabilities is tough? Like, what are those challenges?
Yeah. So people with disabilities often are viewed as maybe infantile or childish or asexual, or on the flip side, they're viewed as hypersexual or oversexed. And neither of those things are true, right? But because of that myth and that stereotype, people often say, oh, well, sex education isn't necessary for people with disabilities. People with disabilities are often more socially isolated than people without disabilities. And so that leaves them at a disadvantage. They have less opportunity to practice healthy relationship skills with their peers. And a lot of times parents of people with disabilities are really nervous about, what do I teach my young person with disabilities? What's age appropriate? How am I going to convey this information in a way that's understandable? And so a lot of times they might avoid the conversation, and that's understandable, but again, leaves people with disabilities really vulnerable. And then lastly, health educators or sex educators might be really great at what they do, but they might not have any experience teaching people with disabilities. And vice versa, we have lots of great educators whose expertise is in working with people with disabilities, but they don't know how to teach sex education. And so there's a lot of kind of gaps there and barriers that then ultimately lead to people with disabilities being really vulnerable to not having information, to not knowing how to advocate for themselves, and unfortunately being at a really high risk for sexual assault and sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I really want to get into hearing about your new project. And so I know this is a question I want to ask you, Quinn. So tell me about this new project that just came out. Like, how did you come up with the idea? And tell me about it.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. So, building off of what Isabella was saying, one of the goals of our program is to create materials for teaching sex education to people with disabilities. And because of my background, before this job, I actually worked at the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf. My background working with the deaf community, I saw a really serious need for more materials specifically for deaf and hard of hearing young adults. So we set out, with this new project to make that. And we recently launched a series of sex education videos. It's called 5 Friends. It's available for free on YouTube. And it shows 5 friends who are themselves deaf and using American Sign Language in all of the videos, talking about different sexuality related issues. They talk about consent, body image, birth control, STIs, relationships, and we see them navigating those things. This group of friends, we see them actually doing it. So that's what the video project is about. And it was really started because we saw a need for more materials like that.
That's really awesome. I watched your videos. I think they're so absolutely incredible. And having done sex ed work with folks who are deaf and hard of hearing, I always had to rely on using an interpreter or a set of interpreters. And so being able to present something like this and use a resource like this, I think really does feel like a huge gap in that education for folks who are deaf and hard of hearing. And so, you've got these series of videos where you've got these young people navigating through these scenarios with, and they're using ASL. But why is it important that these videos are also in as ASL, like aren't turning the captions on enough?
That is a really great question. I think a lot of people might wonder the same thing. And with this project, we set out with 2 goals: linguistic accessibility, as well as cultural relevancy. So you're mostly asking about the linguistic accessibility part. And I would say that people might not know this, but watching a video and having to read captions in your second or maybe third language is not true accessibility. So for deaf and hard of hearing young adults, youth, whose first language is American Sign Language, they might not have the English skills needed to actually get what they need to get out of this video. They might be putting so much effort into reading the captions, understanding the captions, that they're not getting the content as much as you would hope. So it was really important to us to actually have these videos in American Sign Language, so it's just instantly linguistically accessible. I also mentioned the cultural relevancy part. One thing that you're not going to get even if you turn on the captions is the cultural relevancy to deaf and hard of hearing young adults about what is actually going on in their life specific to the deaf community. For example, in the birth control and STI video, we have the young people talking to each other. They're going back and forth about whether or not you should or shouldn't use a condom, stuff like that, and STI testing. And one of them says to the other, like, oh, so you went and got STI testing? How did you feel comfortable saying stuff with your mom there interpreting for you? And the other person's like, whoa, I don't go with my mom. My mom doesn't interpret for me. And they bring up the ADA and how, well, they don't say ADA, but they bring up the fact that their doctor's offices are required to provide interpreters and that is your right to have an interpreter there. And you shouldn't be relying on your family to do that kind of thing. And you don't have to go in there and struggle to communicate directly with your doctor. So that's a great example of something that would not be in a video that's made for hearing adults or young adults, because that's not really relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and like building on that cultural piece, who was involved in creating the videos, and then how were they developed? How were they created?
Yeah, it was a long process. And I will say that Planned Parenthood of Delaware took the lead on this. We got a grant from Planned Parenthood Federation of America, actually. That's what funded this project. And so, although we were leading the project, we had a lot of people involved in it with us. The project started with a series of interviews. I interviewed over a dozen people, ranging from college students to deaf adults, to deaf sex educators, to researchers who have been working in the field for like over 25 years. And I talked to them about, what do you want to see in these videos? What do you wish you had had when you were younger? And what kind of information should we include? So really, we started from the beginning by including the deaf community in the conversations about what they want to see in the videos. Moving on from that, we hired deaf actors. That was another really important thing, to have signers in the videos, of course. We had an ASL consultant on set who actually, their name is B. Gaiman. They're an ASEX certified sex educator. They founded a company called Jukes that serves deaf, hard of hearing, deaf disabled, deaf blind people. That's the goal of their company. And finally, we had a team of deaf videographers because we knew from the beginning, like, we can't have videographers who don't know the language doing the editing, doing the scene setup, making sure everything's making sense. So we really, our goal was to involve the deaf community from beginning to end, and I feel pretty proud about how we did that.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you want to share about your project before we wrap up for today? I'm so excited to also share your videos out on our page and tell everybody. I've already told a bunch of people about them as well, but is there anything else you want to share about your project before we close today?
Yeah, I think that one more thing that would be important to know is that along with making these 4 videos, which, as I said, are on YouTube, on our channel, we have a series of lessons that go along with the videos. So if somebody wants to enhance these videos, which are really, honestly, such a rich medium for like beginning conversations. They bring up all these different things, even the smallest comments that the friends are making to each other. You can build on that so much. And so we've built these supplemental lessons that do build on each of these 4 videos. And those are available on our merch website too.
Fantastic. And then how can people get in touch with your program?
Sure, absolutely. So if anyone's interested in learning more about our programs for people with disabilities or about our videos series in ASL, you can just email education@ppde.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was so great to hear more about, and it's very exciting to hear more about your projects and all the work that you do in our community. Thanks everyone for watching, and please subscribe to our channel and follow us. And everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kat.